Hey, thanks so much for clicking on this video and welcome to the Haves and the Have-Nots review here on YouTube. If you're a fan of Tyler Perry, you've come to the right place. Be sure to click that subscribe button as well as the bell notification icon. That way you don't miss out on any new content on the channel. And also check me out on these social media platforms, and links in the description below will lead you to my Twitter, Instagram, Facebook group, and Facebook page. Once again, thanks for joining in and enjoy the video. All right, have and have not fans. Now, this video is kind of a blending of, the Charles character, his intentions, as well as whether or not he's possibly going to be killed off. Now, I spent the past 30 minutes going through old episodes from season 4, going through the Malone scene, specifically Mama Rose, when Mama Rose and Jim meet up at the restaurant to talk about the situation with Warlock shooting at Mitch, her grandson, and then the following conversation between David and Jim about getting Oscar to track Warlock from his phone in order to find him before the Malones do, and then various other talks the two had in regards of the wrath of the Malones. Now, let's talk about the fact that, and this is brief because after all those scenes, there was one I actually only needed, and it was about in '08. There were a bunch of race riots, and Mama Rose warns Jim that she's as angry now as she was back then. And based off everything in terms of Jim's body language, the tone of his voice, whatever went down in '08 was not good. Whatever went down in '08 was so bad that he definitely doesn't want to that to happen again to Savannah. Not only that, based off the level of, I guess you could say, just pure carnage that the Malones supplied to Savannah, Georgia, Jim is shocked that Mama Rose wants to do that once again just because of her son being shot at and not actually shot. Now, '08, I'm guessing race riots, and I'm going to try to line this up with real world events. I'm going to guess this has to do with the Barack Obama winning the White House. So that could possibly mean that, the race relations weren't good due to the fact that, there was a black man in the White House. So with the Malones, as we know, and if you really notice, we're getting more intel about how they really don't care about black people this season. Do you think that it is possible that there might be another set of race riots because Charles has won the he's won the election, so he's the president-elect? Given the fact that we really don't see a lot of real-world reaction, and by real world, I mean like in terms of the haves and have-nots characters actually doing something. I think the only time we've really seen the people, not the main cast, but like just the people of the city, for example, really banding together was during the whole March for Justice in season 2 for Little Lizzie and Benny Young. So it would be very interesting to see what the people of the town of Savannah will act like because Charles has won. Now, let's just shift back over to Charles here. Now, to keep it short and sweet, I definitely agree with Candace that something about this doesn't seem right. The fact that Charles seems far too good to be true. And to be completely honest, just like her mother, Hannah, if she doesn't trust something because of a gut feeling or something doesn't feel right, she wants nothing to do with it, even if it seems like it's exactly what she needs at the right time. Like with Hannah, Benny gave her the car that he bought from Erica, but obviously it was bought from Candace through the money she extorted from Jim. Not wanting to stay in Benny's house that Candace gave her because, well, once again, it was ill-gotten gains gotten through Jim. And the list just goes on and on and on of all the times that Hannah didn't have a right feeling about something, but she really did need it based off her current situation, but it didn't last long due to, the fact it was gotten through ill-gotten gains. Candace, has definitely inherited this trait from her mother, which I think is actually pretty cool. But also on top of it not feeling right, ever since Oscar revealed who he really was to her at the end of season 3, Candace has definitely not gotten close to any male after that point, because Oscar, as far as we know, was the first man she truly opened up to, but it turned out he wasn't who he said he was. So I can definitely see how she's on guard from that. Then on top of the grief of losing her son, I mean, I see people like, man, yo, she needs to go get that fresh start and Candace needs to become first lady and whatnot. But I agree that it just seems far too good to be true. But I think on top of that, that if this is an entire scheme just to bring down Candace for the murder of Quincy Maxwell, this is one of the dumbest things I've ever seen. Like, why the hell would a remember how Oscar, gave Landon his phone with like a fake website or something? No, actually, Oscar got Landon to show Candace a website pretty much for his biography and everything. And that just exposed the fact that he was a widower, a wealthy man in like the business world and whatnot, to persuade Candace to, get with him. With Charles, I mean, how the hell? If this turns out to be an elaborate scheme that Charles really isn't the presidential candidate, that makes no damn sense. Because even David was the first character to interact with him. So it makes no sense for this to be a scam. I mean, I'm going to be completely honest here. I think this is a scam. But on the flip side, if we're comparing real world events, is it Melania Trump? Because usually I say Ivanka for some odd reason. But Melania, is that the name of Trump's wife right now? Maybe they're doing a parallel to that. The fact that, oh, well, we have a womanizing, president and whatnot in the White House. So why not have Charles make a hoe into a first lady? They could be mirroring that. I'm not going to say it's completely ridiculous. Go back to like season 2, actually, when we find out that Jim has 2 sons by the maid, Celine, just like Arnold Schwarzenegger had a son by his maid, mirroring real world events. Schwarzenegger was the governor of California. Jim was running for governor of Georgia. I'm just saying Tyler Perry does sometimes pull real world elements and then put them into the show. So he could be doing the same thing with Candace and Charles to make sense as to why Charles is pursuing her above everyone else he's been with. So I don't know. I'm on the fence. I feel like I'm more in the camp of Charles and this entire scheme being something to expose who Candace really is. But I also can agree with it actually being real and Tyler Perry just, again, adapting real world elements to the show. But I do feel like it is too good to be true. I just feel like Candace's reservations, I can understand why, but I feel the biggest thing is, number one, she has no control. And really, that's the main thing. I mean, nobody's paying it. What did Jim tell Warlock? Is like, she has a thing where she just loves, like, when she walks into a room, she feels like she's the smartest person in the room, that all eyes are on her. So to have her in a situation where all eyes are on Charles, and I do believe Addison or Adeline said that, oh, well, nobody's paying attention to you. That's the role of the first lady. Trust and believe that if you mess up, people will pay attention. So keep that in mind. So I do feel like Charles might be too good to be true, but let's move a little bit forward down the timeline. We do know he will be in season 7 because in the video I did with Jeffrey Owens in regards to him being on Good Morning America, and we saw some behind the scenes footage of season 7, we do know that he will be interacting with Charles. So Charles is going to be alive for the foreseeable future. But I do believe it is possible, and I'm just speculating here, we see those two in like a dining room, living room area and whatnot. I'm assuming of Charles's house. I think this is possibly the home that Charles would purchase in Savannah, Georgia, because remember, he told Landon, is like, look, I want to see her again, but instead of staying with my family, I forgot what state it was, Michigan, Minnesota, or whatever. We're going to move down to Savannah, Georgia. That way I can be with Candace. So by the time I go to the White House, it won't look suspicious. I think this is a bad move because I feel like if the race riots do reignite in Savannah, Georgia, or if the Malones want to send a message to, everybody in the state, because that was the big thing about Mama Rose after Mitch was shot at. I think it's time to just, remind everyone of who we are and we're not to be effed with. I could see either Charles shot and killed by the Malones in an assassination to once again prove the Malones' point. But I do feel like that's a very foolish move to shoot the next president, because that will bring way too much heat on the Malones, not to mention the Secret Service, FBI is already looking into them to begin with. But also, I feel like, Charles moving down to Savannah is a mistake because I think, to be honest, him being killed off or him losing interest in Candace is the only way she'll be free of the control. So I do think that Charles is possibly too good to be true, and he might actually be killed off by the Malones, either inadvertently or actually killed off for the sake of, oh, we're going to kill this guy because he's the next president. We don't want another black man in office because, we don't like black people. But once again, them killing Charles is a very stupid move because that'll just bring more heat. But as Jim was trying to convince Mama Rose about not going on another riot because her grandson was shot at, because it'll bring way too much heat, I feel like that scene really gave me the vibe that Mama Rose really is just like Catherine, acting on emotion as opposed to thinking of the aftermath. So those are my thoughts on that. So a few big things here. Do you think Charles is a fraud in terms of this being an elaborate scheme to bust Candace? Do you feel like Charles may actually die by moving down to Savannah, Georgia and actually being assassinated? And do you think Candace will just get to the point where she'll just enjoy the ride and not try to get off? So thanks so much for tuning in. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and I'll talk to you in the next video.